Welcome to Awake to Oneness Radio. I am Caroline Chang, your host. The mission of Awake to Oneness Radio is to inspire the world to awaken to the universal truth of oneness. Science is now teaching that we are all interconnected, that we are all one. And spirituality and ancient wisdom has been teaching the truth of oneness for eons. So what you do to another person, you're literally doing to another aspect of yourself. And when mankind awakens to the universal truth of oneness, there will be peace on earth. Today's show topic is Advancement in EVP with Sheri Perl. Thank you, Sheri, for being with us again. I think this is your third, or maybe your third time with us. But also, if we count the webinar we did with the other guests, this is your fourth time with us on Awake to Oneness Radio. Thank you so much, Sheri. Sheri's a dear friend of mine. We don't live we're on the East Coast. East Coast rocks. Okay, so she's not far from me. Okay, Sheri, please. Now, I said the title of the show is Advancement in EVP, and a lot of people are saying, what the heck is EVP? So please share with our listener your journey from like the beginning to where you are now, and explain to our audience.
Electronic voice phenomenon. We're not going to go back to my start with spirituality, because that takes you back to 1971.
Right.
So this is about EVP, so that goes back to 2016 for me.
Okay.
But first I want to say hi, everybody, and thank you so much for listening in. Caroline is a wonderful host, and it's a really friendly, informative show to be part of. I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored that you're taking the time to listen. And I will do my best to explain what electronic voice phenomenon is and how it works, and how you too can do this if you wish. So I am going to right now do a little screen sharing, because I want you to see this particular electronic voice phenomenon is also called EVP for short. So I looked it up on Wikipedia to see how they defined it, and they said sounds found on electronic recordings that are interpreted as spirit voices. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about, and here I am. It's very interesting how this was discovered. It's been around since the 1920s. Electronic voice phenomenon is not really new. Okay. But it's new in getting into the mainstream and getting into the hands of lay people. Up until very recently, the only people who worked with EVP were a handful of EVP researchers and some wonderful spirits who work with us on the other side. This goes back to the 1920s. There was a filmmaker whose name was Friedrich Jürgensen. Mm-hmm. And my understanding is that he was recording birds, the sound of birds in nature, in order to have that as part of a soundtrack for a movie. And while listening to what he had recorded, he began to hear human voices and messages. And so this was kind of discovered, I think, more or less by accident. Yes. But it became clear that spirit could influence sound if we provided sound. My understanding is that spirit cannot make sound in our reality, but if we provide them sound, they can use thought to influence it. And so we work with what we call sound sources. The first thing I want to say, however, is this is not rocket science, folks. It's just not. What we do on our end is very, very simple. We play sound and we record sound. We ask a question, we wait 30 seconds, we ask another question, and all the while that we're waiting, we are playing this background sound source. Later I will show you examples of sound sources. That's all we do. So it's really not rocket science on our part. What makes it a phenomenon is that spirit will come and do something we have no idea how to do. And that is they are able to use thought to embed or imprint, however you want to put it, their thoughts into the sound source and change it. And how they do that, I don't know, but they are able to change the sound source into words that are audible to us. And so it's absolutely astounding when you find your first EVP. I had heard about EVP, I guess, originally in 2006 at a conference in Canada. A man named Mark Macy, who's very involved in the field of ITC, which stands for Instrumental Transcommunication, which I should have put on that little paper.
Okay.
It's
and what does that
not
mean?
just voices. You could be doing images. At the symposium next week, which Caroline and I will both be
right,
on.
and we'll share it. That's the 2000 what am I talking about? 2018 2018 Afterlife Research and Education Institute. Just the symposium, which is September 13th to the 16th in Scottsdale, Arizona. And also, let's share with the listeners, if they can't make it there physically, it's going to be live streamed. So, and the link for the live stream will be in this video. So if someone cannot make it to Scottsdale next week, because I'll be there and Sheri will be there, and you really want to see what's going on in Scottsdale next week, you can see it live.
Amazing.
I know, isn't technology amazing? But also, Sheri, before we get too deep, I just want to share briefly with the listeners how I discovered EVP. Okay. I had never, ever heard of EVP. And I had my first reading with our dear friend, Suzanne Giesemann. And that was on my son's birthday, Kyle's birthday. What year was that? 2016. So this is in 2016, and he was trying to speak through her computer. And obviously, she's a medium, a very well-known evidential medium. So of course she's heard of it, but she's never experienced it before. So her reading with me on Kyle's birthday in November of 2016 was the first time of all the hundreds of readings that she does, that she actually experienced EVP through her computer. And from the minute she invited Kyle in, she could hear this whooshing sound coming through very loud. You can hear it on the audio very loud. The weird thing, at live, I couldn't hear it. Only she could hear it. But on the audio, I could hear it. So, and you can actually hear his voice on that audio.
It's absolutely astounding.
Yes.
You know, getting back to what I was saying was ITC, Instrumental Transcommunication, isn't just voices. Sonia Rinaldi from Brazil will be at the conference, and she brings through images. So ITC is the term for EVP is a form of ITC, but EVP is electronic voices. There are also electronic images. So ITC is a broader amount of things. EVP pertains mostly to voice. When I was in this conference in Canada, I heard Mark Macy speaking about this, and he showed images that had come through. Apparently, a very clear image of Friedrich Jürgensen, the fellow I mentioned earlier, appeared on the television screen of Dear Friends the day he was being interred after he had passed. So it's amazing what they can do with these electronics. It's just, and many people will say, well, my phone just went on and there was a song that was my son's favorite song, and I don't know why. And they are very, very good with electricity, those on the other side. And so I heard Mark talk about this, and I'll admit I was fascinated, but I didn't have a son in spirit, so I didn't have the same need to do this. I was still involved with the raising of my 3 children. I didn't see it as something I could ever do myself. I was very, very excited, but I didn't ever think it was something that I would be able to do. And I will admit at that time, it scared me even a little, you know. I just didn't know what the ins and outs of it were. So I forgot about it. Then my son passed in 2008 of an overdose. And I happened to see an exceptional documentary. Right now I'm going to screen share, because if you have a pen and a pencil or anything nearby where you can write this down, I am going to share with you a link. Let me go to share screen. Hit on this. Okay. If you look at the screen right now, you will see it says documentary. The title is Calling Earth. It's not at YouTube, it's at Vimeo.
Okay.
And I'm sure Carolyn can also post these things when she posts this.
Yes, I can. I can put that in the link.
If anyone has the opportunity now and wants to copy this down, you can see it's HTTP.
But you know what, Sheri? I believe I did see that documentary, and I did see it on YouTube. I believe it's all.
It used to be on YouTube.
Oh, it used to be.
Dan Trazen, the author, the man who made the movie, has moved it to Vimeo, and I was so lucky to get this link. So.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it used to be on YouTube, but it's not there now. So.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Anyway, I saw the documentary, and I was very intrigued. Danny was in spirit, and they were talking about a group called the Big Circle, which were parents and children that were communicating through electronic voice phenomenon. So I sent some emails to some of the people whose names were and emails were mentioned. And someone got back to me at the time, it was around 2014, and said, you know, no, we're not recording right now as a group. We can't really help you. So it went on the back burner again. But then in 2016, I was doing a radio show. I fixed the screen share, right? I'm about to get. I was doing a radio show on Roberta Grimes' program, and a woman named Vicki Talbot, who you will all see if you watch that documentary, contacted me to register her son Braden with the prayer registry, which is a free service for all bereaved parents in which their children's names are printed on the prayer registry calendar on their passing date. And every year on their passing date, mass prayer is sent to all those children on that date. So it's a very supportive group. And Vicki wanted to sign up her son Braden. And she contacted me, and we got to talking. And somehow it became clear that she was the Vicki in the documentary. And she said, sure, you can do it. I'll help you get started. And so she was the first person who began to explain to me a little bit about this. I truly wanted to get started trying on my own. I really didn't understand it, and I really did think it was very complicated. But I went to the AREI website, and they had directions on how to configure your computer to record EVPs. I could not make head or tail out of those directions, though. I got nowhere. But I do have a wonderful tech support fella who I hire from time to time, and Josh came over, and he went through the directions quickly. And before I knew it, I had the correct software, and I basically knew what the idea was. I was going to play this sound source. What I was using then was what we call human vocal gibberish, of which I'll play you a sample. Mm-hmm. And I just played it, asked a few questions. And then when you're done recording, you go back to the beginning of your recording, and you listen to only 2 or 3 or 4 seconds at a time. Right. And all of a sudden, maybe it was about my 4th recording where I heard my son's name, I heard other people's names. And fortunately, both Vicki and Craig Hogan, president of the board of AREI, were kind enough to listen to the little EVPs to my recordings. And they would send it back, especially Craig would send it back to me and say, oh, don't you hear this at second, 22 seconds? Don't you hear Danny's name? And they helped me to see that you have to go through bit by bit by bit and listen for hear a real word. And once it was totally weird. I had a misgiving about a medium I'd been to, and I asked if this person was bringing through real app ports or if it was fake. And I said, please just say a port or fake. And I hear fake. I jumped like 3 feet across my room. But it really was not, I'm saying it again, it wasn't rocket science. And so what I want to do is show you now a little bit.
I wanted to share with you, and you probably, I don't think you know this, but I did take that audio I had with Suzanne Giesemann, and the first person I sent it to, and it was just a few days after, I sent it to Craig. And he analyzed it and sent me back in writing what he could hear. It was a whole conversation Kyle was having that he sent me, and I have that. So Craig is amazing. Yes.
What's wonderful is if you can work with a partner who you can send clips to and they can send to you, because the next thing that really is a little bit a part of it is this term here, clairaudient. I did not know that it's defined as the ability to hear sounds beyond the range of normal. So we have clairvoyant, clairaudient is the ability to hear. And I think that anyone can develop this with practice, but I did not know that I had this ability until I started hearing things that others really said they could not hear until I told them what it was. So apparently I get the word in my head a split second before I hear it in the sound source. And that's a big help to me, because they are hard to hear. But without any further ado, what I'd like to do is take you to what I call my listening panel and show you what I'm talking about. I always, when I teach people, suggest they start out using human vocal gibberish. Let's go to the human vocal gibberish as a beginning sound source, because, and it makes sense, if you're using gibberish made from human vocal, the EVPs will sound far more human. There are many electronic sound sources that I can hear, but they sound like little robots. So if I were doing a reading for someone and wanted to give them a clip of their child saying, "I love you," I would rather use human vocal gibberish so it doesn't sound like, it'll sound like "I love you," because the EVP must reflect the sound source. They're not speaking through their own mouths. They are affecting a sound source. So then I said to Craig myself, because you heard Kyle's voice, we heard Daniel's voice, my son, and that was the first thing that made my husband realize I wasn't making it up, was when he recognized his son's voice. And I said, well, then how can he do that if he's not speaking through his mouth, since he doesn't have a body? And he said, oh, they can sometimes get it off an old voice recording. They have their ways, but they're not talking as I am right now. They are influencing sound. So needless to say, the kind of sound we play will affect the kind of EVP. So for example, I'm going to let you listen for a minute to male gibberish, human vocal in English, male gibberish. It sounds like this. So you can't hear anything in that. That's discernible. Let's listen another second or two. So using that, I was on there trying to talk to my son. At the time, my daughter was pregnant with her first child. And he said, I won't forget the baby. I think you'll be able to hear it. I'll play it a couple times. So from this, came this. So that's pretty awesome. Now, yes. I want to play you one that I like a lot, because in this...
Also, I want to share with the listeners, we have something really unique in common, in the sense that we both have sons in spirit, and they both have the same transition date. Not the same year, but the same date. Danny and Kyle both transitioned on July 1st. So I think that
they're kicking ass on the other side, are they not? they're really amazing. If you're open to it, they will definitely interact with you. What I like about this one is that you will hear me ask Dan a question. I'll say, Danny, can you say I love you, Ma? And then you'll hear, I love you, Ma. But what's very interesting is you will hear the gibberish, because people have said to me, well, can't we just separate the gibberish from the EVP? And I say, God, if we only could. But they are embedding the words into the gibberish. We can't separate them. If anyone can figure that out there, please let me know. So you will hear the kind of in the background, but you'll also hear me ask him, can you say I love you, Ma? and then you'll hear, I love you, Ma. So let me get that on for you.
Danny, can you say I love you, Ma?
Do it one more time.
Danny, can you say I love you, Ma?
So, you know, you can end up having a back and forth conversation. You can say, can you, you know, it's just absolutely awesome. You know, and then I started experimenting with making some of my own gibberish. And I thought, well, if I were to do a reading for a woman who had a toddler, wouldn't it be nice to not have him sound like, you know, a grown man? So I got my little grandson to count to 20, and I made what I call toddler gibberish. And you may be saying, well, how in the world do you make gibberish? The basic idea is you have someone read for 10 minutes, or I had Peyton count to 20, and then you have to go into the recording and chop it up so that there's nothing discernible. I've also used something called EVP Maker, which was for free as a download on PCs. A fella from Germany made it, but I've been recently told he's taken it down. I don't know why. None of us know why. I'm so happy to have it because that's what I used for Peyton. I took him counting to 20 and ran it through EVP Maker to get this. So when I did a reading for a woman who had lost a toddler and she got this, I love you, it was sweet as sugar. I love you. So, you know, I had a very good time with that. And then I started thinking, well, what if you used a foreign language, but you spoke English? Would they be able to use a foreign language gibberish and then speak to you in English? And Sonia Rinaldi, the EVP researcher in Brazil, who's now she also does the voice work, but what she's getting known for are her very fascinating images. Sonia had sent me, you know, we all work together, we help each other out, and she sent me a recording of this little boy named Lorenzo speaking in Portuguese. So let me show you what this sounds like. So I asked my son, Danny, if I use this and I play, you know, Portuguese gibberish, can you speak to me in English? And this came through.
I speak in English. I speak in English. I speak in English.
Now it has the sound of little Lorenzo's voice, because that can't be, unless they're working to get their own voice in, which they can do at times. But how fascinating that now we realize that it doesn't matter the language we use, we need to provide sound. And some people use fans, and my friend Vicky can get EVPs from recording in the bedroom with her washer and dryer. So,
Right.
then at some point, oh, and here's also using this gibberish of Lorenzo when I asked Danny, are you with me? And I got a clear yes. I will play this one.
Danny, are you with me?
Yes.
Danny, are you with me?
It's cute. So this was another one that was from Lorenzo's voice that I love. It says, your mom's here or there, I'm not sure which.
The mom's there. The mom's there.
So it's very fascinating. But then I was told that a lot of the scientific people in the field frown on using human vocal gibberish only because you could get what's called, well, for example, let's say I'm getting the name is Diane, but there's a in the gibberish, I might think the name is Diana. So to them, you know, it's a cleaner experiment if you use something that has no vocal in it. There's no chance that a word or a name could slip in there that you didn't cut out when you made your gibberish. So I started experimenting, and I met up with a very great guy named Keith Clark, who has started a website called idigitalmedium.com. It's right there.
Well, Sheri, let me ask you a question. Wouldn't you say that what Kyle did on my first reading, that was EVP with non-vocal?
Well,
Because
yes, and what's very interesting is they can and will, and at the end I'm going to talk about they can even come through when you don't provide a sound source. You don't even do anything. They can, but needless to say, if you want to do this and be sure to get results, you're best to pick the time, have a sound source, in your mind, send the message to who you want to speak to that you're going to do it. Because you set it up like a science experiment. But yes, there later on down in the slideshow, I have a slide where it starts from spontaneous EVPs.
well, I guess that's the best name for what Kyle did.
Yes,
I
it was a
had never heard
spontaneous.
of it, and we weren't trying to do EVP.
No,
So,
it happens sometimes in Zoom meetings. We've
okay.
done some Zoom meetings, some of the mothers and myself, and while we're doing the meeting, we hear a swishing sound. So I put on the recording program and record it, and they're like, Mom, hi. So they said they can use the energy from the computers and our voices to sometimes generate spontaneous EVPs. But I do want to mention idigitalmedium.com, because if you are at all interested in this digital mediumship and developing it and learning about it, this website is full of information, as well as streams are posted there that you can try out. For example, this is one that's called Spiritron. It definitely works, but I think that Danny sounds like a robot.
Okay.
You can have Danny. So here's a Spiritron saying, I love you, Mom. But I don't want to send it's not the kind of sound you want to give a parent. I'd rather give, I love you, than, because it sounds like a robot and it freaks them out. But this was a sound source called Spiritron C, and it's very sing-song. And this was the first sound source outside of human vocal gibberish that worked for me. And this was my main squeeze for a while. How are you this morning? What's impressive about it is that there's not an ounce of human verbal language. So if you're hearing words, you know that it's not, that the recording had it in them. Here's another sound source that used to be called by Keith Clipper, but now he calls it Michael. A little screechy version of it, but here's one in Clipper where Danny says, I am Danny. It sounds more like a different version of Clipper, but I am Danny really sounds like he's a robot, right? But when you get that and you started from a sound source with absolutely no human vocal gibberish, it gives you a good feeling to know that, it is what it is. Now, I have more streams I could play, but I don't want to bore anybody, so I'm going to move on to some of my own explorations. I started trying to see if I could get EVPs from the water going down the bathtub drain. So here you're going to hear the same sound you all hear when you let water out of the tub. What it sounds like, right? When you're emptying the bathtub. Now, not everyone may necessarily hear it. I believe this says, I surely love you. It's hard to hear that one.
Right.
This is interesting. I started scratching my fingernail on the computer, so it would.
I hope it doesn't sound like scratching on the board.
Listen to this.
Yes, it does. It drives everybody crazy with that one, sir.
Listen to this. You're going to hear. I hear this one quite clearly. All I was doing was what I call finger scratch, FS, and he says it's really a hassle. Now, again, earphones are very, very helpful,
Right. But now, Sheri, I know that you've been doing this with the sound sources for a while, but there's something new you've gotten into.
Well, yes, and I'm going to tell you about that in a minute.
Okay.
But before we get to that, I just want to show you. We won't listen to all these because I love you and like all these different sound sources. I just want to tell you how wild it is. There is something that Caroline talked about, spontaneous phone calls and messages that are really surprising. Like, for example, once I picked up my phone and there was just a scratchiness on it. And when I put it into the recording program, and I was having surgery the next day, a biopsy, because I had one of those scary mammograms. Thank God it turned out to be nothing, but still scares the hell out of you. And I pick it up and I hear the scratchiness. So I ran and got the computer because I'm starting to learn these things can happen. And I recorded it. And when I played it back, I got, I think it's saying, don't be no nervous. That's a stretch. But this next one is not a stretch. Now, this is very interesting. This is very surprising. I say audio message. Vicki Talbot, the woman who got me started, and we were just texting, having a little text conversation when a recording symbol came up on both our phones. So Vicki said, did you send me a recorded message? And I said, no. Did you send me one? And she said, no. And then it just disappeared from my phone. And I said, it disappeared. She goes, oh, I'll send it back to you. Now, a little background information is that in the 70s, I was a student of Jane Roberts, who was the medium who spoke for an entity called Seth. And Vicki and I had been discussing Seth maybe a day or so before, because she had also read the Seth books. And so I took the little spontaneous message that appeared on my text message, and I played it into Audacity, which is the recording program I use, and this is what it said.
Seth, hello, Seth.
Seth, hello, Seth.
Seth, hello, Seth. Seth, hello, Seth.
And we were just floored because we played no sounds. We were texting, and we got a symbol of a recorder. And Seth must have come through and said,
Seth, hello, Seth.
So they can do that. Now, interestingly, last year I was also going to the AREI symposium, and I called the hotel about a week before to check that some packages I sent had arrived. And the fella on the other end's getting really frustrated because we would be talking and then we'd hear, and we couldn't even hear each other. And then it would go back to talking. After about the third time, it occurred to me maybe it was an EVP. So I got the computer, and the next time it happened, I recorded it. And then when I got a chance to play it back, now you'll hear it's very scratchy, but there's a voice that goes, here to get everybody together. Here to get everybody together.
Wow.
So again, the spirits knew about the conference. They obviously were saying that they're getting everybody together, and they broke in on a phone call. So if you're like on a phone call with somebody and you're starting to get very, very bad, you're starting to get all this static. I now just run to the recorder and pull up the program I use to record, put the phone on speaker and record it, because that's fascinating. Now, advancements started happening when I started just experimenting with more things. I don't know if you guys will hear this, but this was a wild thing. My little dog, Steven, was quite sick. For a year before he passed, my son Danny was saying, Mom, you better get ready because, Steven's not long for your world. He's in a lot of pain. And I just kept, you try everything. You go to your vet, one diagnosis after another. And but some days he'd seem better. And it's so hard to make that decision. I just kept hoping I'd wake up and find he was gone rather than have to make that decision to, put him over. But one night he breathed very heavy. So I got this idea that I would record Steven's breathing. And when I played it back, I heard, it's funny because it sounds just like Steven's personality, but it says, I'll play it a few times. This was made in EVP from my dog's breath. And it says, want to go home? Yes, I do. not the best EVP in the world, but it's an EVP nonetheless. And I had a number of them that I could hear. So the next day I took him and we set him free. And it's just phenomenal because you can try out and experiment with many different sound sources. But one day, Keith of iDigital Medium made a Stream 3 that he now calls Michael. And I was trying to do some readings, I was trying to hear it. And I got the idea to slow it down quite a bit. I always slow the recordings down because they're on a faster vibration and the EVPs come in really fast.
Mm-hmm.
But if you slow it down too much, every degree that you slow it down, the voice lowers. I've now learned how Hollywood makes all those demonic, scary voices. You can take any voice and slow it down to it sounds like the devil himself. So if I was doing a reading, I wouldn't want to slow anything down to the voice to sound demonic. But with this sound, it was just an electronic sound source. So I slowed it down and something kicked in. And I started being able to hear every word. So that was my first realization that with this particular sound source called Michael, slowed almost 50% slower than it should be, or than it was recorded by him at, I could hear every word. What amazed me was one night, I always believed that you had to always make a new recording, But one night I left the recording that I had made the day before on my desktop. And the next morning I wanted to go listen to the thing again and see, I wanted to hear the same EVPs, only it wasn't the same EVPs. It was a new kind of dissertation. And I said in my head, does that mean that I don't need to make a new recording, that I can just play the same sound source over and over and you can just reuse it? And they said, absolutely. It's, it's like a line that picks up thought. And so I stopped making new recordings and just using the same sound source over and over. And what I found was it was more like well, now for me, it's like being on the telephone, because I'll go onto my line in the morning and they'll say, good morning, Sheri, how are you? And I'll say, fine. And if I think a question, the answer comes through the sound source before I even finish the question. And while I'm thinking the question, I hear that in the sound source. I began to realize it was a line that picked up thought from me, from them, because it's like there's a field of thought. And these lines, in the best conditions, and with a little bit of clairaudience developing in the ear, this line can pick up the thoughts. And if you learn to train your ear, you literally can I take dictation. I don't go hunting for individual 3 to 5 word EVPs. I just sit down and take dictation. And if I can't understand a couple words, they repeat it and repeat it and repeat it until I type it out, and then they go on to the next word. So it entered a whole new dimension, because it's now for me almost like a telephone line. I mean, talk about soul phone. This is a soul phone, except that I don't think everyone can hear it as clearly. And that's something that we need to work on and develop. Is it a gift, that I had and didn't? I don't know. I think that people could, if they really want to, develop it and put in the time, should also develop the ability to hear it. Now, here's my, this is Stream 3 or Michael, and I just tried to take off a tiny clip from what I hear so people could see if they could hear it. It just says, I love you, I do. You may not hear that. I love you, I do. So, to some people, it's interesting because my spirit team on the other side say that to them it sounds like chicken scratch. Absolute chicken scratch. They don't know how I can hear it. They call me Little One. But they say, but Little One gets the word in her head first. And that's the only reason she can really hear it in this chicken scratch. So it's developed into that kind of thing now, where I absolutely do not need to make a new recording. I just go to the recording I've saved and we start a whole new dissertation. And so it's absolutely fascinating, but I also know it's not for everyone. probably the biggest problem is not making the recordings. It's having the time it takes to audit them, because you go through 2 or 3 seconds at a time looking for the EVPs. But people were showing a real interest in wanting to know how to do this. And so what I did was, I'm going to my own website now. You can see, this is my website. You can see it. You see me over here?
Yes.
Well, for anyone that's interested in learning how to do this, I then went ahead and hired my tech guy, Joshua Freed, to work with me and help me make a user-friendly slideshow for both PC and Mac users. It has a split screen so that both PC and Mac users could configure their computers to record EVPs, because I really hadn't found anything that was certainly simple enough for me to do. So if you look here on my website, if you see where it says the EVP line,
yes.
The website's just sheriperl.com. If you go to the EVP line, these are the slideshows. They're downloadable for free. It's in Keynote for Macs, and it's in PowerPoint for people who need PowerPoint. If you don't have Keynote or PowerPoint in your computer, you may have to purchase them. But once you're into the slideshow, all the software we use is completely free. So
now, also, I believe for people that don't have PowerPoint, I believe there's a PowerPoint online tool. Most of the things nowadays, the great thing about today's technology, a lot of it is online. Even if you don't purchase it, you can run it, like they can open it in an online tool.
Great. So, and the worst, if you open it and you still can't get yourself there, a tech person could do this in their sleep. Joshua is meticulous. He made this, and Josh is right here. He's very available to work with you, but you know, he does this for a living, so he will have to charge. But if you really want to do it and you get stuck, any tech person, the slideshow is so user-friendly. The other thing we offer is that once you've got the components, which consist of this recording program, which is called Audacity, and a few other pieces, you don't know how to use them. So what I did was I made a YouTube video demonstrating how to use Audacity. So if you decide to download the slideshow, now you've got your recording program and you've got your sound source, everything you need, it's all in the slideshow, but you don't know how to get started, you can go to this.
Right.
And you know, I can put it right into, I can just put it right into here, and you go to this. Oh, sorry, can't open it. Maybe I did something wrong, but in any event,
you go to where you were on your website. When you were showing, go to your website again.
I shall.
Yeah.
Yep. Here's this coming right up.
Go to your web. Yes. Just put it in above. Put it in that address bar right there, where it says Sheri.com, where it says SheriPerl.com.
It's all here. It's all here when you go to the EVP line.
Okay.
Here's the link. It's all at my website. Here's the link. And you can also just go to YouTube and type in Sheri Perl, EVP VID for video.
Right.
And that will bring up the video. And the video has me speaking for a little bit where you see me, and then it switches to this. And it shows you absolutely everything, how to make a recording, how to save it, how to go back in and highlight a certain section and listen to one section at a time. And so there are a handful of people now that are getting on. It's not tons of people, but I hear from people all the time saying, well, you know what? My husband and I got our first EVP last night. So the slideshow works, and it's for free. The EVP video on the EVP YouTube video is free.
Yes.
And so if this is something that interests you, you can definitely, I have no doubts that this can be done, and it's absolutely not rocket science. I swear to you, it's anything but rocket science. I also wanted to point out to people, going back to welcome page here, if you are bereaved, especially if you're a bereaved parent, but it would help anyone who's bereaved, this little book that's just below my photograph is called The Grieving Parents Handbook, and it's written by myself and a whole bunch of wonderful moms who all lost children, who give you their best advice, and it's available as a free download from my site. So you do not have to buy it. If you don't have to, you can print out as many copies as you want if you've got a group, but you can also just read it online, and it addresses 3 questions that we all go through. Why me? Is this my fault? How do I live with this? How do I move forward? And then tips from others who've been there. And so those 3 questions are answered not just by myself, but all these other moms and who, could have been dads. It was open to anybody, but, most of the women are the ones to kick in. And so, here's Nakia H. and Amy G. and Roseanne H. And they all, some put in very long pieces, some put in short pieces, but they all shared from their heart how they coped with this.
Yes.
It's really wonderful. You can read one page and just give yourself a little bit of support. So the website, my website is certainly available to anyone that wants to learn EVP or needs the, help with grieving parents, or, if they want to join the prayer registry. I guess I ought to, am I still screen sharing?
No, you're not.
Okay, so I would have to get rid of this anyway, but I should just let people know that I'm going to share screen one more time. I'm going to go here. If you should happen to go to my website, go in there one more time. For those who have lost children, this is the prayer registry. And every month there is a calendar for each month. And as you see, the children's names are all printed on the calendar. This is today, obviously. And no month goes by. Look at that. We have a lot of kids on the 27th.
No day goes by, really. Not just no month. No day goes by. Because I get them.
It goes from September to October to November, and it keeps growing and growing. And it just is a very helpful thing, because if any parent who's lost a child knows that when that day rolls around, they want to know that they have the support of others. And unfortunately, what we've often found is that a lot of times people forget the date. Or if they remember the date, they're very uptight. They don't know whether to call. They don't know what to do. And people feel very lonely and unsupported. So the prayer registry was formed by me to make absolutely sure that no one goes through a passing date alone. So if you are one of those people and you want to register your children for prayer, you just scroll down below the calendar. You go to sheriperl.com. Again, what comes up is this, welcome page. You'll know it's me because you'll see me. And then you hit on the prayer registry. And then you scroll down below the calendar, and there's a form. You put in your email address, your first and last name, your children, your child's passing date, and hit subscribe. And that will get sent to me, and I will add that child to the calendar and get back to you to let you know all the benefits and how we work as a group. So anyone is welcome to join. Anyone's welcome to learn how to work with EVP through going to the EVP line. The other thing, since we mentioned her, is that Sonia Rinaldi has a little image gallery at my website of the unidentified images. If she knows who someone is, we don't put it in. But if she'll often send me a picture and say, do you know who this child is? Do you know the parent? So we decided that we'd do an image gallery here. So that's Sonia, she's great. And these are some of the images that come through. Obviously, it's not like your best Polaroid, but these are images from spirit. Right. When you think about it, it's completely mind-blowing.
Those are amazing. Those are amazing images. That's a little doggy. Yeah, that could be my Coco. Yeah.
Right. Well, maybe.
Yeah. And because Coco also came through on that recording with Kyle.
I heard that. I heard the book.
Yeah. Yes.
So again, you may want to look through some of the photo gallery. You may find that one of your children made an appearance with Sonia. And so as she gets images,
I can't wait to meet her next week in person. I've never really met her. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with Sonia, but
she's a lovely woman.
Yeah. Well, now that you're sharing, because I was going to share, can you go to and bring up the the page for the symposium next week so people can see?
I should be able to. It's
Yes.
just on afterlifeinstitute.org.
Yes.
And we go to that, and then we hit where it says 2018 Symposium.
Right, 2018 Symposium, which is next week. And I actually was invited by Suzanne Wilson to be a moderator or host for one of the panels. And thankfully, I am going to be hosting. It's the New Spirituality panel, and Sheri and Craig will be on that panel. We mentioned Craig a couple of times, but I'm really excited. I'm really excited to be going and to be meeting all the scroll down so they can see some of the speakers. I think it's towards the bottom. A little bit, maybe.
Here's the whole group.
Yes, those right.
Before I was growing in my gray hair, folks. So
there you go.
I was a brunette for so many years. But yeah, this is the whole bunch of us. And it's going to be a lot of fun, but the great news is now it's live streamed. So
yes, it's live streamed.
You can pick up and get on a plane and go to Arizona. So
right, and I will have the link. I will have the link for the live stream right in this underneath this video. So yes,
great, because that way you'll really be able to see it and hear it. Here's I guess from last year.
Yeah, that's from last year.
Yep. So it's absolutely a very exciting conference. They're bringing some very interesting mediums.
It's the largest afterlife symposium in the world. So
well, this is our second year. I mean, this is this is just really starting. So it's wonderful. And again, if you're not one of those people who's going to hop a plane, and if you want to be part of it, they are making it available. See, on live stream.
Right.
So click for details. So, it's just something that you can do if you want. You just go to afterliferesearchandeducation.org and, you can get all the information on how to live stream. So you can be there without being there. That's the beauty of the internet.
The internet is amazing. It's so amazing. It's connecting us more and more every day. I've been doing this show now 3.5 years. I get email. I've gotten an email from someone in Japan, and I had to put it. It was written in Japanese. I thought it was written in Chinese, and I had to put it. I had to put it in Google Translator, and it was just that the show is encouraging her, and she just was thanking me, and so I wrote, typed out a thank you to her, and put it back in Google Translator, translated to Japanese, and sent it to her. And yes.
And I want to just point out to anyone that is not an EVP person, but knows I wrote a book, Lost and Found, A Mother Connects Up with Her Son in Spirit. And this was long before I started with EVP. And I know it's not for everyone. What I want to say is, a boy came through the other day to talk to his mother. I was doing a reading, taking dictation, and she had asked him, how can I see you better? And he said, that's just the problem, Mom. You won't see me with your physical eyes. He said, but he says, there's a field. There's a field of thought, a field of spirit, and you are spirit now while in your physical body. So a part of you is able to be in that field. And he said, it's kind of like your iCloud. I just love that. He said, but it's the spirit cloud. He said, but when you want to tap into the iCloud to get information, you've got to put in to the program, I want this file. But he said, but in the spirit cloud, we're all there, as well as an aspect of yourself.
Right.
So if you'll just open the doors and let in what you already are a part of. And he said, but Mom, it's going to come through the same window that you think of as your imagination. So you have to be able to not dismiss everything. He says, start out with a little daydream. Ask me a question and just let your daydreams go. But keep a little pen and pencil, we will notify you because images will start flowing. And he said, trust me on this. They're not just cartoons you're making up in your brain. Many of the images you're getting are being sent to us. And the difference between the medium and yourself is that they're acknowledging the images and you're dismissing them. And it's true if you think about it when you go to a medium, so often they'll say, is this making sense? Do you know what I mean? Because they're seeing images. They have no way of knowing if it's relevant to you. When I do my readings and a child tells me something about that they were taken out of their body at impact and didn't suffer any pain, how do I know? I just type what I hear.
Right.
But the point is, if we're going to sit and judge it and try to determine, you know, we get that mental level. You know, Eben Alexander, who many of you have probably heard of, he wrote an amazing book called Proof of Heaven. If you haven't read it, read it. He calls the physical brain a reduction filter because there's so much beyond all of that. But for us to be able to connect with that spirit cloud, we've got to, you know, we've got to go through the reduction filter. And by the time it gets to our conscious mind, we just go, to daydream. Mm-hmm. Well, think again, because we're being influenced all the time by our loved ones. And so pay attention to what goes through your mind. You don't need an electronic sound source to clarify it if you'll just acknowledge what comes through.
That's so true.
We all can do this, and
yes.
we're wired to, because part of us is spirit already.
Right. We're all, that's so true. And that's what oneness is all about, sweetie.
Yeah, right.
We are all connected. We're all connected to our loved ones. Our sons, Danny is not gone. Kyle is not gone. I always say that. I never say I lost Kyle, because he's with me more now than he was when he was in the physical. Because when he was in the physical, I didn't know where the heck he was half the time. Yeah. But now he's with me all the time. And I see him every time. When I say I see him, I don't physically see him.
Of course.
But I know when he's giving me he gives me signs all the time. It's like, and I always say, and I say it aloud, I see you, Kyle. When I know when he's giving me the signs. And I think that's what
it makes you so much happier when you live knowing, even though you may not physically see them, they're walking beside you. It gives you so much more happiness. And
yes.
Daniel and my spirit team call it the veil of vibrational differences. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. They are vibrating. They're on a different vibratory level. And we are not capable of seeing that. But part of us is on that level too. Yes. We have to learn to acknowledge the spirit side of ourselves. And it's not that hard. Just take 10 minutes, sit in a chair, relax, let your mind relax, call out to your child, ask a question, and then just sit back and let your mind have fun. See what comes in, but pay attention. Because yes. Some of those things are going to sound more like your child than you. And that's one good way of knowing, you know.
Right. You know what's so cool? I just realized this show, we're pre-recording the show, but this show will actually air while we're at the symposium. This show is going to air next Friday, which is the 14th, while we're at the symposium. And so this show will air and people will have access to click right on the link and join us live stream. They can listen to this and then click on that link and join us live stream. That's amazing.
AREI as well. So I really want to thank everyone for listening in. If you want to join the prayer registry, my door is always open, and I know Caroline's is too. Anything you can do to help. And I send love and appreciation, and I'm so grateful to Caroline for making me a part of her world.
Oh, thank you. I'm so thankful to have you a part of my world. I'm so glad you're so close. So when I feel like, and I still, before winter sets in, I'm getting to the city. Yeah, I'm coming to the city before winter sets. This summer, it's just been so rainy. It's just so weird. Hot and rainy. Yes. And I'm in the mountains. I'm in the mountains and it's hot.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners. We really appreciate that you're taking the time to listen.
Yes. And thank you so much. Thank you. And so I will see you next week. And anybody that's listening that wants to join us, you can. Just click on that live stream link and we'll all be together in Arizona next week. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.